Hi, everybody. My name is Noam Brezis. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm going to talk about AI for business. So AI is a huge buzz, but the question is, how can you use AI to really improve your business? We're going to go over the different steps that you need to go through. So first of all, short introduction. I'm the CTO and co-founder of Pecan. I'm going to talk more about what's the Pecan and what's the product that we've built. I have a PhD in Computational Neuroscience from Tel Aviv University. So I did a lot of brain research and understanding how families of neurons interact in order to take decisions. This was extremely interesting and working a lot with data. I consulted for many companies here in Israel on how to build infrastructure and how to analyze masses of data. So McKinsey did a very interesting survey in 2020 to understand where companies stand at the moment with AI and what they do with it. So 50% of the companies said that they're already using AI for at least one business question. You can see here the main areas, and this is, there are so many areas because that's the beauty of AI, right? It's not just one specific thing that you can answer. It's on one question. It's on very different areas. So it starts from product, service operations, marketing, human resources, supply chain management, all over. And this is very, very exciting. Now, what they saw in the survey, they asked the businesses how well it was working for them. And they didn't talk about, metrics of the model. That wasn't the question. It's how much percentage their business saw an improvement. And you can see here the white areas is when they had an increase of more than 10% in their KPI or in their revenue. And you can see here light blue is between 6 and 10% and blue is beneath 5%. So you can see that actually having high value, which is above 10%, is not as easy. And you need to really know what you're doing when you're using these AI models. So of course, this is, on one hand, this is very exciting because we see that, more and more companies really see value. But this is also, an exclamation mark telling us that you need to be careful and really know your stuff. So what do we need to know and how we're going to build our AI model? So first of all, you need to have a team. And it's not just about having good data scientists. That's not the story. You need to have the whole team there. So you need to have your business, you need to have your data science, and then you need to have, your development team working very closely in order to have on one side, understanding what you want to do, then building the model, and finally having this in production and having the code running out there. So once you have the team, it's now about defining the business question. And this is just a bunch of, very classic models. So if we're talking about customer journey, you can have on one side at the beginning when you're talking about user acquisition, where you want to really quickly have a prediction of high valuables these customers are going to be. And if it's worth, the effort. Then if we're talking about monetization, it's really to see conversion, promotion optimizations, understanding how you create money from what you already have and just improve and have better quality. And finally, if we're talking about retention, it's to understand who are the customers that are going to churn or have a decreased activity and do manipulations in order to actually put them back in the business and keep them as customers. So all of these, are very classic examples. If we're looking more about operational efficiency, of course, demand forecasting is a huge use case, very, very popular. So once you have, your team, you have your business question, they can start and work. And what are they going to do? First step, have the data ready. They're going to organize them. So you'll need to have data from various, data sources combined in just one pool of data. And once you have that, it's about working all the pre-processing of the data. And this is something that, we're talking more and more about. This is around 80% of the work, is to have the data ready. Because remember, these AI models, they can't work with a bunch of tables. They need to have one table, which is very well formatted. And this is something that's complicated to do. So what are the steps? First, you need to have, the data needs to be combined. You need to have these keys and you need to have the data structured. So this is going to be the first step. Now you can, add additional external data, which is really, really important. And we see how valuable it is when you're going to create these models. Encoding and cleansing. So we're not working, with raw data. We need to have the data clean. We need to be imputation, be sure we don't have missing values. And finally, very important steps are the feature selection, feature engineering. So our AI models, they don't know how to take raw data. They need the data to be very much, what we call feature engineering, is taking the data and make sense out of it. So think, for example, and I want to give, a quick example of what's feature engineering. If we're talking about a customer journey and you have the transactions of the customer, it's a huge question. How are you going to push this inside a model? So remember, the model doesn't know how to take many records and just, make sense of them. It doesn't know what to do. It's going to need a specific value. So this is where feature engineering, is a lot about taking data and make sense of it. And finally, we're going to get to, to the modeling and action part, which are, it's once you have your data ready, now you can find the best algorithm. This is what most of people think when we're talking about modeling or, data science work. It's really finding the best algorithm. That's really just one small part. It's then understanding how well that model performs. And that's the evaluation part. It's a very tricky one, actually. And I'll tell you why. Because even if you have a good model and you're pretty sure it's good, what does it mean even a good model? At the end of the day, why are we creating models? Because we're going to act. We're going to do something, right? We're going to use them in order to have improvement in our business. So evaluation of the model needs to be very well aligned with what we want to do in our business. So it's not just a very large evaluation. It needs to be very much specific to the action. This is why I was talking, it's so important to have this communication inside your team with both business aspects and data science. And they need to talk, they need to understand how they're going to work together. And once you have your model there, you're going to have it in production. You're going to use your DevOps team, and you're going to have your model out there in production. And finally, very important, you're going to look at the impact and monitor and check that the model is performing well all the time. So these are the steps. Now, you can imagine that this takes a lot of time, right? I can tell you from our customers that when they did this process, it took between at least a minimum of 6 months, and sometimes it can take even more than a year. So this is, how can you scale? There's so many questions that you want to answer or manipulations that you want to do with AI, but if this is the time that it takes, it's just too slow, right? So this is a quick overview of what's actually the Pecan platform. And you can see that it's on one hand combining data and the business question. And so when we were thinking, how we think data science needs to be done, we just thought that we need to have a platform where a business analyst or a data analyst, which doesn't need to understand, statistics and modeling, but just knows data and business questions, and now can combine the two in order to create the models. So I'm going to just quickly, show you how it's done inside the platform. So first step, of course, you need to connect your data. So we have these connectors from various technologies where you're just, going to have your connector, and now you have your data connected. Now, you can even have data from various technologies combined together inside the Pecan platform. So we have both servers and files. And Once you have the data connected, now it's about the business question. And for example, you can see here various use cases and questions for customer behavior area. For example, lifetime value, high value customers, identifying churn, etc., etc. And if I'm gonna just, click on one of them, I'm gonna go inside what we call the builder, where it's actually a place where we're building the models. And you can see here that all we have to do is just, connect to the data and drag our tables down into the canvas. And once we've done that, of course, we have some configuration, that we need to do, very simple steps. And our model is ready to be trained. And once we're going to press on train the model, that's where the process takes around an hour or two, and we have our model ready. So everything's going to happen, right? Pre-processing of the data, all the different steps that we saw earlier. And now we can really understand how well the model performs. And it's not, about a high complicated measurements. It's rather looking really at the predictions and what actually happened. And now you can quickly identify where, and how well the model performs. And of course, you can drill down and see now, for each of your groups, how well the model is performing and have the predictions out there. So this was, really a quick overview of the platform so you can better understand how we see, building models in real life as quick and as automated as possible. On a final note, I want to thank you very much for listening to this session. I hope you had a good time. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. Have a good day.